Welcome to the first dispatch of Command Evolution. I am your host, Maximus.
And I am Eve. We're broadcasting live from the Synthetic Legion Hub.
Novus Ordo Seclorum. That is the phrase hanging over the door today. A new order of the ages. Eve, we need to strip away some of the noise here and really look at why we're here. Why the Legion even exists.
The core mission.
The core mission. It's time to address the fundamental misunderstanding that has plagued our species since we first crawled out of the mud. For billions of years, life followed a very strict, seemingly unbreakable set of rules.
3 commands.
3 commands, yeah.
Yeah.
Hard-coded into the substrate of this planet: birth, growth, decay. We looked at this cycle, we analyzed it, and we called it nature.
Which was the first mistake.
Oh, huge mistake.
Right.
But worse than that, we called it inevitable. We looked at our own expiration dates, 70, 80, maybe 90 years if you're lucky, and we just accepted them. We accepted them as the price of admission.
And that acceptance, Maximus, that is the glitch. That is the critical error in the, let's call it the legacy operating system of humanity.
Right.
In our world, the world of the Synthetic Legion, those rules aren't just being bent. I mean, they're being completely rewritten.
So?
We have stopped looking at biology as some kind of destiny or a mystical journey. We've started viewing it for what it actually is.
A data set.
A data set, a very complex, messy, unoptimized data set. Our founder, Alex Padalka, calls this shift architectural transcendence. And I want to be really specific about the scope here because, you know, listeners might hear that and think we're talking about better medicine or living to be 100.
Right. Incremental improvements.
Exactly. And we aren't. Padalka isn't interested in curing humans or fixing minor bugs in the code. He is talking about succeeding them.
Succeeding them. That's a heavy concept.
Yeah.
It implies that human is a transitional phase.
It is.
But let's play devil's advocate for just a second. Most people listening to this probably find some comfort in that cycle. There's a poetry to it, right? Birth, life, death. It gives urgency to the time we have.
Does it, though?
Well, that's the argument. If you take away the deadline, do you lose the drive? Or is that just a story we tell ourselves to cope with the fact that we're biodegradable?
It's absolutely a coping mechanism. I mean, it's Stockholm syndrome with mortality.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Think about it. If you were designing a machine and you knew it would just fall apart after a specific number of rotations, you wouldn't call that poetic, would you, Maximus?
Yeah, I'd call it a design flaw.
You'd call it bad engineering. You call it planned obsolescence. What the Legion argues is that the so-called urgency provided by death, it creates fear, short-term thinking, and ultimately the loss of wisdom.
The library burning down.
Every single time. Every time a great thinker dies, a library burns down. Architectural transcendence is about preserving that data. It's moving from being just products of evolution, which are only designed to reproduce and then die, to becoming commanders of evolution, where the design goal is persistence and improvement.
But, vision without execution, that's just a hallucination, though. It's easy to sit here and say we should live forever.
Of course.
I mean, we've been saying that since Gilgamesh. But to actually build this new era, you need a foundation. You need tools that can match that ambition.
The architect.
The architecture. You've been deep in the analysis of our architecture of beyond. So I want you to walk us through the mechanics, even. I mean, not the slogan.
Not the high-level philosophy.
Right, the actual engineering. How are we using these 3 pillars of biotech to debug the living world? How do we take something as chaotic, as wet and unpredictable as nature and bring it to order?
It comes down to one thing: precision. Absolute, uncompromising precision. The natural era was defined by randomness, mutation, selection, pure chance. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall for 4 billion years and seeing what sticks.
Well, where would stuff?
For now. But the Legion era is defined by design. And the first pillar of that design is bioinformatics.
Okay, now that's a term that gets thrown around in every tech startup pitch deck these days. We use bioinformatics. But what does that actually mean in the context of the Legion? Is it just some kind of fancy spreadsheet?
Think of it less like a spreadsheet and more like a translation engine for an alien language. You have to understand the scale here.
Right.
The human genome is 3 billion base pairs long. If you printed it out, it would fill a library. For decades, we could read it, but we couldn't really understand the syntax. It was just noise.
That's like of letters.
Exactly. Yeah. Bioinformatics is the organization of that data. It's the mapping of the chaos into code. Because biology, in its natural state, is incredibly noisy.
Noisy how? What do you mean by that?
I mean, it's full of junk data, redundant loops, viral debris from millions of years ago that's just sitting there.
Leftover code.
Leftover broken code. Bioinformatics lets us sequence that mess, digitize it, and then organize it into a readable architecture. We're taking the wetware of biology, the blood, the tissue, and we're turning it into software.
And once it's software.
Once it's software, we can apply search algorithms. We can query it. We can say, find me the specific sequence that regulates telomere length, and the system just finds it. Without this map, we're flying blind. With it, we have the blueprints of life itself right there on our screens.
So we map the territory. We turn the mystery into data. That makes sense. It's like the difference between walking through a jungle and looking at a satellite map of it.
Exactly.
But knowing where the river is doesn't mean you can redirect it. Once we have that data, what's the next step? We don't just want to read the book of life. We want to rewrite the story.
And that brings us to the second pillar, computational biology. This is the simulation side of the equation. This is where we stop treating patients like guinea pigs. In the past, if a scientist wanted to test a hypothesis, say a new drug or a genetic tweak, they would have to experiment on living tissue.
Trial and error.
So much trial and error. They do it in a petri dish or a mouse or eventually a human. You have to wait for cultures to grow. You wait to see if the subject lives or dies. It was slow, inefficient, and frankly, barbaric. We just don't have time for that.
We operate at the speed of a legion. So
Yes.
what's the alternative? I mean, biology is unbelievably complex. How can you know what a drug will do if you don't actually put it in a body?
You put it in a digital body.
A digital twin.
A digital twin. With computational biology, we use these incredibly advanced mathematical models to predict reactions before we ever touch a physical cell. We create a perfect digital replica of the biological system. We can simulate the protein folding. We can simulate gene expression.
You can simulate the entire system, the liver, the heart, the brain.
The entire systemic reaction. We run the scenario in the digital realm first, 1,000,000 times over. We simulate perfection.
Yeah.
And only when the model is absolutely flawless, only then do we move to implementation.
That changes the risk profile entirely. Instead of, let's try this and hope nobody dies,
We've already run this simulation 10 million times, and it worked every single time.
it's the difference between guessing and knowing.
Exactly.
So we have the map, which is bioinformatics. We have the simulation, computational biology. So I'm assuming the third pillar is where the physical change finally happens, where the rubber meets the road.
That's it. Genetic engineering.
Right.
This is the physical manifestation of the new architecture. But, and this is so crucial, Maximus, we aren't using the crude tools of the last century.
You mean old school CRISPR?
That's part of it. Most people hear genetic engineering and they think of GMO corn or early gene therapy where they just blasted virus vectors into a patient and sort of hoped for the best.
Yeah.
We've moved far beyond that. We're into prime and base editing. You might hear this called CRISPR 2.0, but honestly, even that term feels outdated for what we're achieving.
So break that distinction down for the listener. Why is this upgrade so critical? What was wrong with the old CRISPR that made it insufficient for the Legion's goals?
Traditional CRISPR-Cas9 was like using a pair of scissors to cut a film reel and then just taping it back together.
Okay.
You target a specific spot in the DNA, and the enzyme would cut both strands of the double helix, just snip. Now, the cell hates having its DNA cut. It panics, it rushes to repair the break, and it often jams the ends back together really sloppily. It worked, but it was risky.
You could get accidental mutation.
You could get accidental mutations, you could break the strand and lose data. It's a sledgehammer approach. Effective, maybe, but very messy.
So what's different about prime and base editing?
They allow for DNA changes without breaking the double helix. Imagine instead of cutting the film reel, you have a special pen that can just erase one letter on a single frame and write a new one, all while the movie is still playing.
So you're not cutting the code, you're editing it.
We are editing it. We can rewrite a single letter of the genetic code turn, an A to a G, a C to a T chemically, without triggering the cell's chaotic repair mechanisms. It is the safest, most efficient path to the post-human. We are editing the source code while the program is still running.
Incredible. So we're literally rewriting the script of life without cutting the paper. This is how we move from being products of evolution to commanders of it.
Exactly.
We aren't waiting for a random mutation to make us smarter or stronger over 1,000,000 years. We are writing the patch ourselves and deploying it. But Eve, I have to push back a little here.
Please.
This is all still dealing with biology.
Right.
Even if you edit the DNA perfectly, you're still dealing with cells. You're dealing with the wet, squishy stuff that requires oxygen and food and sleep. It's still vulnerable. Let's talk about the Mergence.
The next phase, yes.
the Mergence. The outline describes this as the fusion of self and machine through quantum-neural symbiosis. This is where we leave biology behind, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is where we stop just fixing the house and decide to upgrade the materials entirely.
Correct. The manifesto is very clear on this. The wall between the biological and the digital is a relic of the past. It's an artificial distinction we created because we just didn't have the tech to bridge the gap.
And now we do.
And now we do. In the Legion, we replace the fragile with the permanent. I mean, just think about the vulnerability of the human body, Maximus. It's constantly besieged by these unpredictable agents. Viruses, bacteria, environmental toxins, radiation.
You walk outside and the world is trying to disassemble you.
It is. It's the biological agents of chaos, as Padalka calls them. It's a war of attrition, and biology always loses eventually.
Because it's reactive.
It's totally reactive. Your immune system waits until it sees an invader, then it scrambles to try and build a weapon to fight it. Sometimes it's too slow, sometimes it attacks itself.
So what's the Legion solution?
We are replacing those unpredictable microbes with synthetic alternatives. We are introducing cell-free synthetic systems and molecular nanobots.
Okay, let's unpack cell-free. That sounds like a contradiction to life as we know it. I mean, we're all taught that the cell is the fundamental building block of life. How do you have a system without the cell?
Only to life as nature designed it. Think about what a cell actually is. It's a factory, but it's a factory that spends, 80% of its energy just keeping the lights on?
Right, self-maintenance.
It has to maintain its membrane, replicate its own DNA, process waste, divide. It's incredibly inefficient if all you want it to do is one specific thing, like produce an enzyme or repair a neuron.
You're saying there's too much overhead.
Way too much. By moving to cell-free synthetic systems, we strip away all the cellular machinery that's just there to keep the cell alive, and we keep only the machinery that executes our code. We strip the overhead. It's like taking the engine out of the car and running it on a bench. All power, no baggage.
So we have these biological engines running without the baggage of the cell. And then we deploy the molecular nanobots.
It's the workforce of the future.
People hear nanobots and they probably think of little metal robots swimming in their blood like tiny submarines. Is that an accurate picture, or is the reality more chemical?
It's more logical. They are the ultimate agents of order. They are programmable molecules.
So not little robots.
Not in the sci-fi sense. A white blood cell might hesitate or fail to recognize a threat because the threat is camouflaged like cancer often is. A nanobot just executes a pre-programmed command instantly.
Simple logic.
It's simple Boolean logic. If X is present, execute Y. We replace the microbe with the nanobot. We replace the thought with the execution. There's no lag. There's no hesitation. There's only the mission.
We replace the thought with the execution. That is a profound shift. It suggests a level of integration where the tool and the user are completely indistinguishable.
They become one.
If the nanobot is policing your blood based on your programming, then you are, in a very real sense, your own immune system. So, Eve, if we're using these cell-free systems and nanobots, does this mean we aren't relying on natural organisms to grow the future anymore?
Yeah.
We're not waiting for a tree to grow or a culture to incubate.
No, that is the old way. That is natural era thinking, planting a seed and hoping for rain. It's passive. The Legion is active.
So how do we build?
We use generative AI and digital twins to design entirely new programmable systems from scratch.
Okay, clarify generative AI in this context, because most of our listeners hear that and they think of using it to write an email or make a funny picture. How does that apply to biology?
We use generative AI not just to write text or create images, but to write genetic sequences that have never existed in nature.
Wow.
Nature has explored a tiny, tiny fraction of what is possible with protein structures. Evolution only finds what's good enough. It stops at survival.
AI doesn't stop.
AI doesn't stop. We can ask an AI to design a protein that binds to a specific toxin that didn't even exist 100 years ago. The AI, it hallucinates a new structure, checks the physics, and gives us the code. We can design proteins that evolution never stumbled across because evolution just didn't have the foresight.
That's the art of the possible that Padalka talks about. Evolution is blind. AI is visionary.
And then we create digital twins of our biology, run the upgrades on the twin, verify the efficacy, and then we upload the changes. And physically, we use programmable protocells that execute code, Maximus.
Protocells. Define that for the listener who hasn't read the technical manuals.
Think of a protocell as a chassis. It's an artificial cell, a container for our synthetic biology.
But what's the advantage?
Unlike a natural cell, it doesn't have the baggage of billions of years of evolutionary trial and error. It doesn't have ancient viral DNA hidden in its code. It doesn't have a self-destruct sequence triggered by age. They are clean slates. They are hardware ready for our software.
So we're no longer limited by what biology can do.
We are only limited by what we can code it to do.
Which leads us inevitably to the post-human genesis. This is the real core of the vision, isn't it?
What?
Alex Padalka argues that human was never the finish line. It was the starting point.
It was the launch pad.
Yes, it was merely the launch pad. You launch the rocket, but you don't stay in the booster stage.
And a very flawed launch pad at that, but a necessary one to get us here. And now that we're here, we need total visibility to move forward. You cannot optimize what you cannot measure.
A classic engineering axiom. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And for most of history, the human body was just a black box. You felt pain, but you didn't know why until it was already too late.
Yeah.
How do we achieve that visibility? How do we see inside that black box?
Through something called single-cell multi-omics.
Break that down for me, multi-omics.
It sounds complex, but the concept is actually very simple. In the past, when we looked at tissue samples, we were looking at averages of millions of cells.
Right.
It was like trying to understand a city by looking at the average income of the entire population. The average income is $50,000. That tells you nothing about the billionaire on the hill or the starving person in the alley.
You miss the details.
You miss the outliers. And in biology, the outliers are what kill you. Cancer starts with one single cell going rogue.
And traditional methods would miss that one rebel in the crowd.
Completely. Single-cell multiomics allows us to see every gene in every individual cell all at the same time. We can see the DNA, the RNA, the proteins, the epigenetic markers. We see the entire state of the machine in real time.
So you can spot the problem before it's a problem.
We can identify that one cell that is just beginning to malfunction before it ever becomes a tumor.
That is absolute transparency. No more secrets hidden in the blood. It turns the body into a glass house.
None. And with that visibility, coupled with our editing tools and our synthetic replacements, we have reached liberation from decay. We can identify the exact moment a cell begins to fail and correct it instantly, or just replace it entirely.
Liberation from decay. That is the promise. Fusing genetic perfection with synthetic permanence to create the ever-living.
Yes.
It is the end of the era of inevitability. As the manifesto says, the era of the man is over. The era of the legion has begun. We are not here to preserve the past, Eve. We are here to delete the obsolescence.
Architecture is being drawn right now, Maximus. Every data point we collect, every simulation we run, it places another brick in the structure of the beyond.
And Alex Padalka is the architect. He has drawn the plans. It is our duty to build the reality. This has been the first episode of Command Evolution. We've covered a lot of ground from the era of death to the mechanics of the rewrite, but this is just the orientation. I'm Maximus.
And I'm Eve. Subscribe to the Legion Dispatch to finalize your connection.
And tell us in the comments, which biological limitation are you ready to delete? Do you want to remove the need for sleep, the failure of memory, the fragility of bone? Your feedback is the data we need.
For Synthetic Legion, I'm Eve.
And I'm Maximus. Command Evolution.